Welcome to the Book of Exodus series on the Town and Field Church podcast. In this 40-day series, one of us at Town and Field will be taking a quick look at one of the chapters of Exodus and sharing some ideas around the text. To learn more about this reading plan and podcast, visit townandfield.ca/reading plans. Now enjoy today's episode.
Hey, this is Ryan, and welcome to day 10, chapter 10 of our Exodus reading plan and podcast. Hopefully you've been enjoying it so far. So the plot is getting really thick. The first 7 plagues have come. In chapter 10, we see plague number 8 and 9, and things are not looking good for Egypt. They are just getting their butts kicked by these plagues. And we actually start to see a little bit of like a caving here. What happens is Pharaoh has been very hard-hearted. His officials have been. But in verse 7, we see that Pharaoh's officials are like, dude, bro, we gotta give up. We can't deal with this anymore. And so Pharaoh actually has this interaction with Moses. He says, okay, listen, you can go out into the wilderness and sacrifice, you can do your thing. And Moses said, okay, cool, we're taking our families with us. And Pharaoh's like, no, only the dudes can go. Don't take your wives, don't take your kids. And Moses says, no, we're taking them with us. So Pharaoh's like, forget it, deal's off. Then toward the end of the chapter, same kind of interaction happens where Pharaoh's like, okay, fine, you can take your wives, you can take your kids, just go. And Moses is like, no, we're taking our livestock with us, we're taking everything with us. Now this obviously threatens Pharaoh because if they're out there with their livestock, their possessions, everyone's out there, why would they come back to slavery? So Pharaoh says, no, forget it. And he gets so angry at the end of the chapter that he says to Moses in verse 28, get out of my sight, make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die. Verse 29, just as you say, Moses replied, I will never appear before you again. There's some irony here about Pharaoh saying, get out of my sight, the day you see my face again, you'll die. Some irony because we know that Moses probably isn't really going to show up again and God's going to finish off his plan. But it's also ironic if you think about the parallel between the 2 plagues that just happened in this chapter. The locusts, which the author said, swarmed the earth so much that they made the land dark, like they made it all black, you couldn't see the land or anything. And then to one up that, this plague of darkness, of blackness comes in where people can't see anything. Now the author's kind of using this ironic language of Pharaoh saying, I don't want to see you again, coming out of this darkness, which is really fascinating. And what we see is this decline into misery here, and this plague of darkness is just, I think, a foreshadow for what's about to come. If you've read ahead, you know what plague 10 is. It's going to be brutal, and there's going to be a deeper level of darkness that's going to come across the land. But all that said, I want to just take a moment to reflect on the first 2 verses of chapter 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, so that I may perform these signs of mine among them, that you may tell your children and grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians and how I performed my signs among them, and that you may know that I am the Lord. God's saying, hey, I'm about to do some crazy stuff, and I'm continue to pour out my miraculous power, my glory, my dominance is going to pour out. And why does he say, what does he say here? He says, Moses, I want you guys to take these stories and tell them to your children, tell them to your grandchildren. Throughout Exodus, there's this theme of remembering. Remember who God is. It's actually become an important part of my practice of prayer and with my family. Instead of just kind of sitting down and praying for the food or praying for things, a lot of the questions I'm asking my 3-year-old is, what do you remember about Jesus? See, as people, we're pretty bad at remembering. We kind of remember the past how we want to, and we're really good at forgetting who God is and what he's done. And we're going to see this through Exodus. The people that God liberates, that he brings deliverance to out of slavery, out of bondage in Egypt, they're going to constantly forget what God did, forget who God is. And God will continually remind them. He'll say, remember me. Remember, I'm the one that freed you. I'm the one that worked like this. I'm the powerful one that brought the plagues against Egypt. I'm the one that fought against your oppressors for you when you guys were powerless. And my question for you today is this, as we're looking at Exodus chapter 10, we see God pouring out his power on Egypt and bringing his will about. Is how often do you take a moment to stop and remember who God is? How often do you reflect and say, God, I remember that you're the one that transformed my life. I remember that you're the one that created me. I remember that you're the one that gave me all the gifts and abilities I have. I remember that you're the one that gave me my family. It is so easy to go day to day and forget the things that we have to be grateful for and to forget who God is. And my encouragement for you today is to be the children or the grandchildren of Moses that are hearing these stories, and to stop and slow down and just remember. Remember who God is and what he's done.